going to start by having prepped white clay, black clay, and translucent clay to achieve this BasketWeave cane. Now the BasketWeave cane, when using a translucent, I really like the fact that it has more dimensionality, so it looks like waves rather than just having a grid. So to achieve that, that's how I'm going to show you, what I'm going to show you here. Alright, so let's begin with that. Now on the translucent, you start with your thickest setting on your pasta machine. And the white and black are pretty thin. Probably the fourth step out from thick to thin. I don't say numbers because everybody's machine is different. So I'm going to move the translucent out of the way. I like to lay down the biggest sheet first. And then I walk the black sheet onto it. Now when you roll it on, it's better to do it this way so you don't trap any air pockets. And then it's nice and thin. To get it even thinner, I'm going to take it over to the pasta machine on the last setting that I used and run it through one more time together. So I'm going to go off camera, run it through, and so it kind of sandwiched it together, which makes it really nice. And what I'd like to do is just do a little trim so you can bring it in and we can see how thick it is or how thin it is. That's what you want to have. Now if you think that's too thick, I'm thinking it might be a little bit too thick still. So I'm going to take it down one more setting on my machine. And run it through again. And then check it again. That looks pretty good to me. That looks pretty good. The decision that you're going to have to make is what you're going to use this for. So if you're going to take it down to something that's really tiny, you want to start relatively tiny. And I'm going to trim off the excess and discard. I don't measure. If you want to measure, be my guest. And then we take the translucent. Obviously we don't measure because this is bigger. But I want to lay this on, the translucent, or roll it on to get the air pockets out. So lovely. And I'll trim off the excess again. Trying not to trim off all 3 layers, just trimming up to the area, because you don't, if you keep trimming and trimming and trimming and trimming, you're not going to have anything left to work with. Alright, so now we have a nice, probably 3:1 size. It's really hard to read the translucent with the white, so I'm going to put my fingernail up so you can see how far that white comes. So they're equal distance, the black and the white, and then the translucent's a little bit thicker. The next step, set this down, I'm going to come over to my machine and go back to my thickest setting and pass this, all 3 of them together. And what this is going to do is going to thin it out even more, but still retain the ratio of the thicker translucent. You can't achieve this by rolling it through the machine on its own. It would stick to the rollers and roll all the way through and get stuck, and that would be just a disaster. So the next step to make this BasketWeave is I'm going to cut this in half. If you're not sure, you can measure, and we're going to sandwich it together. You can make a sandwich. Again, tacking it down at one end and then rolling it on so you don't trap any air pockets. Look at that. I need my little scraper tool. I like to use the scraper tool so I don't cut the Teflon. Now we have a nice piece of sandwich. So it goes black, white, translucent, thick, and then back to black and white again. This is what you want to achieve. At this point, I'm going to begin to cut it, and it's a good idea to not have it any wider than your blade. It's better to have it a little bit more narrow, like so. Now if you're using the big long flexible ones, I wouldn't try to make it that long because it's really hard to cut an even cut with a big wobbly blade. So I would say this is about 3 inches. And the whole idea is to cut the same depth as it is tall. So that's going to be up to you and what you have on your table. So press straight down and then tilt it over. It always wants to stick to the blade. So you're going to continue on, cut straight down, remove it. Now I'm going to turn it around, leaving it on the blade, and then butt it up right next to it. See how nice and tight that is? And then we'll cut another one. Straight down, remove from the blade. So now I can't turn it around because it'd be the same thing on both ends. So this one I want to cut and flip forward and sweep it right onto there. In a perfect world. Now I can butt this up. You want to be mindful of not handling it too much, because that's when you start messing with the lines and making them all wavy and wonky. We're going to have enough of that later on. Okay, cut again, and then flip one down. So try to make it, and if you don't feel that you have the eye to do this, by all means take a tool, go ahead and mark it along the side, do whatever it takes for you to cut it equally. So this begins with the black up and ends with the profile slice up, and that's what we want. So it's 2, 4, 6 wedges, if you will. That's all for this one. The next one, we're going to set this aside and start again. And we'll make probably 2 layers and then cut that in half, and when I sandwich it all together, it's going to make sense. Alrighty, now that you repeated the same thing 3 times, it's time to assemble them. So if you notice, all of these on one end start with the translucent. Well, we don't want to just stack those on top. We want to flip them in order to match them up. So if you look at one end and line it up so that's opposite, and then turn it over and open it like a book, and then follow the lines, woo, all the way up. It's visually quite fun. That way you make sure the lines are all up through the center. And then we'll do the same thing again with the third one, like so. And then turn it over, open it like a book, and then just follow the lines up. And this one stretched while I was doing it, so I'm going to pull on this one a little bit. There we go. And note my ends are a little wonky. I don't trim until it's until the very last second. So once this is all put together, I'm going to just lightly give it a roll on all 4 sides, just to consolidate it a little bit better. I don't really want to do any squeezing yet, because if you pinch it, you're going to interrupt and get wavy lines, unless you really want that. Looks like I have a hitchhiker something, piece of tape. Alright, just a light little roll, not putting hardly any pressure. Alright, so we got that, and we're going to cut this in the middle. Now I don't have a ruler handy, so I'm just going to make a little mark with my eye, and then I'm going to test it visually. Turn it around, No, this is about the middle right here. Close enough anyway. So you can't really open it like a bookend because then it mirrors itself right there. We're going to have to flip one the other way. Let's bring it up a little bit. That's good. So this is the way it was cut open, and then you flip one. Tack it together. Look at that basket weave. I just love it. Flip it around and do the same thing and walk it up. Now you can leave it this way, and it's quite nice the way it is. But the one that I had done, I kind of pinched it and, you know, brought it together on the ends just for my own visual use. So everybody's got their own little thing, and also the grid will get much smaller. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate that. I like to place my left hand fingers, you know, one hand fingers on two sides and then the opposite side. So it's kind of like north, south, east, west. And I pinch all at the same time. And go down, down, and down. Turn and do the same thing. So it gets a little indented because my fingers are strong. So it's good to give it a little bit of a smoothing with the roller. So now I take my fingers and just kind of drag, hold here, drag and just lightly, but it's going to respond to the warmth of your hands. Some of you might have to be a little bit more aggressive, some of you not so much. It really depends on your environment. Take it down to what you think you want, and then to achieve that nice little football shape that I had, I start to pinch or curl the ends towards themselves on two opposite sides. I don't try to do it all at once. I forgot we moved the camera. I was going by my marks. So now I'm going to bring it together with my thumbs. And then the same thing on the opposite side. So just two sides are you pinching together. And it doesn't necessarily matter if the lines meet up. It's fun if it does, but it's not going to hurt anything if it doesn't. I smooth it out. Now we get to cut it open. And come in for the tight. And here we are. Yeah, see? That's pretty cool.